Hello everybody and welcome back to the United stand. Alejandro Garnacho forcing a move to Aston Villa, but will we be able to sell these players? Alejandro Garnacho, Marcus Rashford, Antony and Jadon Sancho. Ruben Amorim's transfer hopes rely on outgoings, it relies on sales. We've been told numerous times that it's Cunha, hopefully Mbeumo, and then to get the striker in, to get other players we want to get in, a goalkeeper, perhaps a midfielder, even maybe a wing back. We know we've been looking at Estepinian from Brighton. We will have to sell. The Glazers, Sir Jim Amorim, he wishes, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, they have all put aside these players and thought we are going to be able to get the money from these players to get incomings this summer, and Ruben Amorim is banking on selling in order to get the players he needs in. Is his transfer window in doubt? How are we going to be able to bring in the players that Ruben Amorim wants to get if we cannot sell these players? Because he was very clear, we need these players in for pre-season. I want to work with my team, and if we can't move on the likes of the Rashford, the Sancho, the Garnacho, the Antony, then it's going to be a real struggle to get players through the door. We've got a lot to do. Time is ticking by and nothing is happening. I want to have my say on the Alejandro Garnacho situation, him wearing the Rashford number 9 for Aston Villa. Also, Marcus Rashford's interview over the weekend out in Spain. I want to have my thoughts on that. I want to get your thoughts in the comments as well. I want to talk as a community, get interactive, maybe run a couple polls as well, and get your opinions in on this. There is certain people out there saying it isn't that deep. To me, based off the history of this football club, Sir Alex Ferguson, and the greatest manager of all time, Sir Alex Ferguson, never, ever would have stood for behaviour like this, and it's embarrassing. I have fans of other clubs messaging me saying this is embarrassing as a Manchester United fan that these things are happening, and it just kind of shows the culture that we've got at Manchester United, the player power that is been allowed to thrive really within the last decade, and what a huge job Ruben Amorim has on his hands to change the culture. He's done this before though, and that's the good news. He's done it at Sporting Lisbon on a smaller scale. It's a massive ask to be able to do it at Manchester United, but he has started to do that, and he was proved right. The first 2 players that he exiled from the Manchester United squad was Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho. He brought Garnacho back in, but he was proven right the whole time, in my opinion. But this is about opinion, so get your comments in. Also, we've got some news on Rasmus Højlund as well. Inter very keen on bringing Rasmus Højlund in, but they are not willing to meet the valuation that Manchester United want for the player. Because remember, we have to get around 38 million to let Rasmus Højlund go, just to balance the books, just to break even, because we paid such a big transfer fee for him. So it's going to be difficult. But then when you see Liverpool selling Kwanzaa for what they're selling Kwanzaa for, I think it's around 40 million euros that they've sold Kwanzaa for. They've got a buyback clause in there. It's a brilliant deal for them, to Leverkusen, who they bought Wirtz off. You see other clubs selling their players. Darwin Núñez, he's been labelled one of the biggest flops in the Premier League. He doesn't really play at Liverpool, and he never lived up to the hype. Yet apparently Liverpool are set to sell Darwin Núñez for around 70 million euros. How are Liverpool able to do this and Manchester United are not? And you might say it's because Liverpool are champions. It's because players are going to be more well valued even if they're part of a title-winning squad. And you can argue that, but other clubs can sell their players as well. Clubs all around can sell their players for decent fees, and Manchester United continue to struggle. And I've been having to think about this myself, and me personally, I do think we overhype our players, and they're not as good as what we think as a fan base. And we've got to look at the situation. We did finish in 15th last season. It wasn't just down to 1 or 2 players, it was down to the whole squad, individuals, the way this club was managed. A lot of it, you can't just put the blame on one person, it's a collective blame. But is the squad really as good as what we've hyped it up to be? And I think that's another question that comes into the comments as well. And we're paying these players the wages of what title winners should be on. But in reality, we're performing as a bottom half table side, and that doesn't bode well when it comes to selling. So get your comments in, let me know what you think. I want to start off on the Alejandro Garnacho stuff. And quickly, just looking at the comments as well, Rob Always United says, could you sort these players out with your assertiveness and sources, Beth? I would love to. Honestly, I would love to. Get me in a room with this squad. I would love it, because... But then again, I don't think there's any helping some of the players that have been and gone. I don't think there is, because Ruben Amorim is come in and looked at a massive job on his hands. He's tried. He brought Garnacho out. He brought him back in, and again, you know, he's not managed to change the underlying factor as to why he got rid of him in the first place. And it's clearly the attitude and the mentality. A lot of these players, I speak to people within the industry. They're given way too much, way too soon. Like, Alejandro Garnacho was given the Ronaldo chant by the fans. Like, imagine what that does to your confidence, to your, I mean, some would say ego. And don't get me wrong, some players would have took that and thought, wow, what a huge sign of respect. I've got to live up to this. I've got to work hard every single day. But how do you repay the fans that have given you the Ronaldo chant? And of course, he's done a lot of good things for the football club. He's scored in some important games. He was a big decider in a cup final for us in the FA Cup. But ultimately, you've repaid us by embarrassing us across social media. And I do think it is embarrassing the United fans by wearing that Rashford shirt, particularly right now. The fact it's... Do you know what it is for me? And let me start at the beginning, because there's a lot to get through that I've missed over the weekend, and there's a lot that I want to have your comments in on as well. I mean, we've done the initial reaction, you've seen Golbridge's reaction to that, and we've heard some comments start to filter through about this, but I really kind of want to delve into it and delve into how this actually could affect Ruben Amorim this summer. And for me, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, it's just because he's wearing a Rashford shirt, and a lot of people don't like Rashford anymore because of what happened with Ruben Amorim, and because, you know, he's fallen out with the club, and because he maybe didn't try as much as what people thought he should have tried within the last year or 2 years of his time at Manchester United. And it's not that. I have no issue with Alejandro Garnacho wearing a Marcus Rashford shirt if it's a Manchester United Marcus Rashford shirt. And even that, some people will think, why is he wearing a shirt of a player that's publicly fallen out with the manager and gone against the manager and caused the manager problems? Because in my book, if you're disrespecting the manager, you're disrespecting the club. And imagine if, and I know times have moved on, and I understand that, but he's still the greatest manager of all time. Imagine if a player, when Sir Alex Ferguson was managing Manchester United, went on his holidays in the summer and wore a shirt of a player that Sir Alex had publicly fallen out with. There would be uproar, and Sir Alex Ferguson would not stand for it. And there has been a shift, and it shows that there's been a shift, and it's just modern day football and society. The players have a lot more power nowadays, a lot more power. But I'm at the point where wear a Rashford shirt. There's plenty of Rashford shirts that say Marcus Rashford 10 that are a Manchester United shirt, but don't wear a Villa shirt with Marcus Rashford on the back of it. That's where you're going over the line for me. And people will talk about Ugarte wearing a different shirt, Ahmad wearing a different shirt, who else was wearing a different shirt? Dorgu wearing a different shirt, but it's a completely different circumstance. Alejandro Garnacho is not being forced out of Manchester United because he's worn a different shirt. Alejandro Garnacho is being forced out of Manchester United because he is shown attitude and ego problems multiple times now. And I just want to bring in this tweet from Amorim Era, which I think is good to bring up in times like this, because I've seen a lot of people online saying, just let him be, he's just wearing a Rashford shirt on his holidays, but it's done intentionally. And if you look at these series of events, Manchester United really need to be strong in terms of moving Garnacho on and moving him on as quickly as possible. So in April 2024, Garnacho liked 2 of Mark Golbridge's tweets criticising Ten Hag for substituting him. Mark Golbridge of the United Stand, shout out there. In September 20, but even though it's Golbridge from the United Stand, like, it wasn't a, I can say, even though, you know, we love the United Stand and Mark has every right to put tweets out about the players, he's a fan. Alejandro Garnacho shouldn't be liking tweets that are publicly criticising the manager on social media. In September 2024, Garnacho liked Fabrizio Romano's Instagram post of Cristiano Ronaldo criticising Ten Hag. In December 2024, Garnacho liked an Instagram post which was criticising Lisandro Martinez, a fellow player. In December 2024, Garnacho was left out of the squad for the Manchester City game for disciplinary issues. In May 2025, we lose the Europa League final and Garnacho does an interview straight after to question Ruben Amorim's team selection and insinuates that he wants to leave. In June 2025, Garnacho posts a picture on Instagram wearing an Aston Villa shirt with Rashford on the back, likely to spark a reaction. And then he says at the end, it's gone past simply being unprofessional. 1/2 mistakes would be fine, but he doesn't want to change. Sell ASAP. So that's what he said at the bottom there. And there is a couple of other circumstances that go along with this as well that isn't even mentioned in the tweet. But if you kind of put all that in order, no matter what the talent is, no matter how good you think he could be, no matter the fact he's 20 and he's got potential, adding on to the fact the club that he's been linked to this summer is Aston Villa, it's just, you cannot have this situation go on any longer. And you're looking to Ruben Amorim and you're looking at a manager that has publicly said multiple times, we have to be strong in the transfer window, we can't fall behind this summer, we have to be brave. He wants signings in and he has made it crystal clear that he wants them in for pre-season. Well, our first pre-season game is on July the 19th. And you might say, Beth, we're on June 23rd. It's less than a month away. It's less than a month away. We have at least 3 players that must be sold, but ideally 4. And we've still not even had the here we go on Mbeumo. We need a striker desperately. A lot of people would say we need to decide what we're going to do with Onana. And we need a midfielder. How do you facilitate those deals? You sell the players that aren't going to be part of the project. You take that off Ruben Amorim's hands, because Ruben Amorim's going to have to make a decision if these players are still here. Do they come on the pre-season tour or do they train behind at Carrington? And at this point, you'd probably leave them to train at Carrington. And some would say, well, it's not a good look for clubs that are interested in buying them, that they're not even on the pre-season tour. It's not a good look anyway. If I'm a manager at another club and I've seen the behaviour of Garnacho, it's off-putting. I do genuinely believe that it is off-putting, and we've had quite a few weeks of the transfer window now, and who's come forward to put a bid in for Garnacho? Who's come forward to put a bid in for Rashford? Who's come forward to put a bid in for Sancho, Anthony? It's slim pickings. You're in a situation with Garnacho where Napoli have shown interest, but they're not going to go above 40 million at this moment in time. Villa have shown interest, but they have PSR and FFP issues themselves. And yeah, Leverkusen could be an outside chance, but Romano said financially they would struggle to get a deal done. And there's been some rumours from a long time ago that he could go back to Atletico Madrid, but I've spoke to people that are well informed on Atletico Madrid that say the way Garnacho even left Atletico Madrid wasn't really on good terms and they wouldn't have him back. So Manchester United can be holding out for 60 million, even 55 million, 50 million could be a push. And you've got to look at, not just blaming Garnacho, you've got to look at the club as, how are we in a situation where an asset that this time last year was probably worth around 70, 80 million pounds, suddenly you're struggling to get 50 million for him. And the longer this goes on, the Garnacho might do something else to try and get a move away, because he probably wants his future secured as well. He knows he's not coming back to Manchester United, and you're in a situation where we are probably not going to get good money for players that we thought were our biggest assets, and that puts Ruben Amorim's plans a little bit in jeopardy when he's got a squad that he needs to rebuild and a starting 11 that massively needs to improve. You've got Yeflo saying, what if this is just a subtle hint at Marcus Rashford staying at United and taking the number 9 shirt? Do you know what? That is adding 2 + 2 and getting 12. Like, how you have come to that, you must be the most glass half full character that I have ever met, because that is never going to happen in a million years. If anything, it could be a nod. I mean, apparently Garnacho and Rashford aren't even friends. I'm going to bring that in a second. But it could be a nod to the fact that suddenly Marcus Rashford's idol is Thierry Henry and he wants to play down the middle. Could be a nod to that. I don't know. Why Garnacho would be doing Rashford any favours, I'm not sure, because according to an article by Samuel Luckhurst, they're not even friends. I mean, let's bring that in as well, because speaking of, I thought going into this summer, genuinely, I thought Garnacho was our most sellable asset, our most valuable asset, and I genuinely believed we could get at least 55 million for him. I'm scratching my head here thinking we might have to sell him for 40 with a shed load of add-ons, hopefully. Will he reach them? I'm not sure. He'd have to change his attitude. I think talent-wise he's there, but a player with that attitude and mentality might struggle in the future as well, because it's not just Amorim. He did have a couple of issues with Ten Hag. I mean, I think they resolved their issues, and I think now they have a great relationship, and Ten Hag could actually have him at Leverkusen. But remember that pre-season tour he went on when he didn't get a minute because he wasn't turning up on time. When, you know, there was stuff that happened in social media-wise against Ten Hag. So it's not just Amorim, it's a common denominator there. But I want to bring in the Rashford stuff as well, because this, again, I saw it and I thought it's disrespectful. I don't think doing the interview in Spain is disrespectful. I actually think, you know what, Rashford, you're not coming back to Manchester United. We know you're not coming back to Manchester United, and you are trying to get a move to Barcelona. I don't think there's any issue with him doing that interview in Spain. And, you know, if you think there is an issue, fair enough. But if you want him to stay, I kind of get you. But if you want Marcus Rashford to leave and you have an issue with him doing the interview in Spain, I don't understand, because he's trying to get himself a move. That I'm fine with. What I struggled with is him saying his idol is Thierry Henry. First of all, it's your biggest rival's legend. Thierry Henry is an Arsenal legend. I understand he's probably given a nod to the fact of the Barcelona aspect of it, and he's probably trying his best to get a move to Barcelona because they're about to close in on signing Nico Williams, who's going to play off the left. You have Nico Williams off the left, you have Yamal off the right, there's Rafinha to be involved in that as well. Where is Rashford going to play if he goes to Barcelona? I think Rashford's thought, you know what, Lewandowski, obviously fantastic forward who is a better striker than Rashford, but he's not a spring chicken. You know, he's not exactly one of the young players. He's probably coming to the end of his career. He's in his twilight years. Maybe I could be an understudy to Lewandowski and eventually take that number 9 shirt, but he must think extremely highly of himself if he thinks he can play in the centre forward role for Barcelona. I mean, in a fluid front three, he probably could do it. Hansi Flick is a great manager. But from what I've seen of Marcus Rashford playing up front in Manchester United, I don't think he's capable of playing up front for Barcelona. But he might be trying to angle that sort of move. But it just doesn't add up to me, because at Manchester United, you're talking about how you're a boyhood Manchester United fan, which I do believe, by the way, a boyhood Manchester United fan, you know, how much you are one of the fans, going to Old Trafford in your early years, you know, love Manchester United, Wayne Rooney's your idol, and now suddenly Thierry Henry's your idol. I mean, I'm a homegrown Manchester United fan. A lot of you out there, I'm assuming if you're watching the United Stand, you're a Man United fan. Is Thierry Henry any of your idols? I mean, I would never have an Arsenal legend as my idol. And I can respect him as a very, very, very good player and a legend of the Premier League. But if someone said, you know, who's one of your favourite footballers, who's one of your idols, I would never state anyone from Liverpool, City, Arsenal. It'd always be, you know, Ronaldo, Rooney. It was always Rooney for me. But I found that a little bit odd as well. Class of 99 says, let's be honest, those that backed Ghana now stop due to the hate they have for Rashford. They withstood everything, but this is hilarious. Class of 99, nobody's hating on Garnacho, and it's not hate, it's criticism. It's criticism. That's what it is. Like, nobody hates anyone. Well, I don't hate anybody. I don't know if people in the chat do. Hate's a very strong word. It's criticism because he's wearing a rival shirt with a player that is publicly falling out with the manager. It's not anything to do with Marcus Rashford. Ronnie Dodge says, at least Cunha has the right attributes for United. We hope so. We hope so. But, you know, players come into Manchester United and they start off and you think, wow, what a brilliant player. You know, United over the years, they've not gone out there and purposely signed flops. They've signed players for a reason, because they're doing really well. They've been scouted. They are one of the best players in their team. They look like they've got a lot of potential. And over the years, you get a player in, and rarely do we sign a player and everyone sits here and goes, I really don't like them. What are we doing signing them? They're rubbish. A lot of the time, we're like, yes, buzzing, we've signed them. Can't wait. Can't wait for Anthony to join Manchester United. Can't wait for this player to join United. Sancho, he's going to be amazing. But they come into Manchester United and suddenly it's like a switch and they're infiltrated, and next thing you know, it's unrecognisable from the player that you thought you were buying. I'm hoping Cunha is a character who can withstand that, and Ruben Amorim will change the culture to a way that this stops happening. Because there's a couple of players, but one that really kind of springs to the top of my mind as the only player who's kind of withstood it is Bruno Fernandes. He came into this football club and a lot of people are excited about him, but he has shone every single year and has provided every single year. Sometimes, he's better than others. Sometimes he makes mistakes, but he's not been dragged down by the football club. But a lot of players that do come through the door, you have such high hopes for them and then they don't fulfill it and they do get dragged down. Cunha looks like he has a great attitude. He looks resilient. Ruben Amorim has taught to the player a lot. He was at the forefront of his mind. He really liked Cunha, and we know how much Ruben Amorim values attitude, mentality, behaviour. So you'd like to think that Cunha will be a good sign in that aspect and things will be changing. Premier League proven is something we've missed out on a lot, but it is something that needs to be addressing. And I've said this, I've spoken about it in conversations with my friends, I've spoken about it in conversations with rival fans. If Cunha and Mbeumo aren't successful, you do really have to just sit back and look at the club. You have to look at the club. Because Cunha, when I've watched him at Wolves, and I've watched him a lot, very, very good player. And Mbeumo, watched him for Brentford a lot. Extremely good player. They are bound to be successful. There's such a low chance of them flopping and not doing well that if they don't succeed at Manchester United, you have to look at the club. You really, really do, because United have gone down multiple different roads when it comes to signing players. You've gone for the older, senior players that have experience behind them. We've gone for the young potential FC. You've gone for European pedigree who have done well in the European leagues, but we've not shopped in the Premier League enough, in my opinion, over the last God knows how many years. And when we have shopped in the Premier League, we've not always made the best decisions on which Premier League players to get. And Mbeumo and Cunha, two of the best players in the Premier League that don't play for a top six side. That is what Manchester United should be doing. And that's how we should be elevating this side. And I'm not saying it's going to take us to be Champions League winners or Premier League winners, but it'll definitely make us better than 15th. And if them two players don't succeed, we've got a real problem on our hands, in my opinion, there. We've got some chats coming in. Let me read a few of your chats in the comments here. Thornster11 says, Delap just said he idolised Rooney. That makes sense. I mean, are you saying that makes sense in the fact that he's a Chelsea player that's saying that Rooney was his idol? For me, Delap isn't a boyhood Chelsea fan, is he? He's not a boyhood Chelsea fan. He's signed for Chelsea, and I'm sure he's going to give his all for Chelsea, but Marcus Rashford is a boyhood Manchester United fan. I'm just saying that me personally, as a Manchester United fan ever since, I've been alive, that I can remember, I would never say my idol or my hero is an Arsenal legend. I wouldn't. That's just me, and I'm on here to give my opinion. That is all. We've got a couple people asking about Sancho and about Anthony as well. Let me bring that in for you. So, I put out this tweet earlier today, and I think it's really important we talk about this because every day that I see people talking about what midfielder we're going to go and get, if we're going to sign Emi Martinez, who's the keeper we're going to get. Nobody else is coming through that door. Unless we've been not told the whole truth, nobody else is coming through that door after Cunha and Mbeumo unless we sell players. And I've just explained the situation. Nobody's come forward for Rashford. Nobody's come forward to Garnacho for the price that we want. Sancho, there's clubs interested, but he won't drop his wages. Anthony will drop his wages, but a club aren't willing to pay the money that Manchester United want for him. We're in a real sticky predicament in getting rid of all of these players, and it could go well into August. Ruben Amorim needs players in for pre-season. That's the situation we're in. And his transfer plans, if you're Ruben Amorim watching this unfold, you're going to think, oh, I've planned for this pre-season to have my players in, and they're not going to be here. It's worrying in that sense. And I'm even sat here, I'm not the most patient person anyway. I'm going to be honest. My patience, especially apparently your patience is supposed to go as you get older. God help my children when I'm older, honestly, because my patience is very thin anyway. But this Mbeumo deal, I know it's happening. I don't want to scaremonger, but it does worry me the more and more it goes on that we're not going to agree a fee with Brentford. And I get we're only on June 23rd and I don't want to scaremonger people, but we've only actually signed one player. And that does worry me a little because Liverpool, who have just won the league, have signed Kirkez, Frimpong, Wirtz, have managed to sell Kwanzaa for good money and are now looking to try and break their bank for Isak. How are you even supposed to compete? City have done a lot of business as well. People say it's because of the Club World Cup, but Liverpool aren't in the Club World Cup. They've been doing it. Chelsea have been doing business. Arsenal, to be fair, I don't know what they're doing, but at least they've signed Zubimendi, I suppose, which is definitely, a great player for them to bring in. But we've only signed Cunha. That's where we're at. And I'm very happy with Cunha. I'm very happy with Mbeumo. But I think we massively, massively have to get a striker, and that just worries me. And how do we solve these issues? We need to prioritise selling some of these players that are not going to be part of Ruben Amorim's plan. So I put a tweet out of who do United need to sell most, and get your comments in down below as well, because I want to hear what you guys have to say on this. And I put the options as Anthony, Garnacho, Rashford and Sancho. And I said, list from 1 to 4, who needs to be sold most for Manchester United. And a few key points came into my thinking around this. And who has the most value? Who is going to cause the most issues if they don't get sold? Is there anybody that could still turn it around at Manchester United? And, who has the most interest from other clubs? So I went through it that way because we need money, but also you need Ruben Amorim to be happy with his squad. And I never thought this was the order that I would go in. But I had Sancho needed to be sold the most. The highest wages, is completely disrespected the club basically ever since he came to Manchester United. Not in his first season, but there's been multiple instances where he's disrespected the club, and can anybody remember where Jadon Sancho has actually helped the club in any capacity, or a moment where he's done anything for this club? I struggle to. So I'd have Jadon Sancho as number 1. The biggest wage, and just doesn't suit this system, and has no way back with the fans. The freedom comment is just never going to be forgotten. He has to go. Also, probably has the most interest at the moment. You've had Napoli interested in him. I know they're not willing to pay his wages. There's the Saudi clubs interested in him. Turkish clubs interested in him. Dortmund interested in him but can't pay his wages. Apparently Aston Villa may have been interested in him. So he's got a little bit of interest there. It's nothing to write home about, but he's got to go. Joint second, because I couldn't really differentiate between the two because I feel like they're both in the same position right now, is Rashford and Garnacho. Rashford, broken relationship with Ruben Amorim, publicly said he needs a new challenge, is angling for a move to Barcelona, and everybody knows it. Also pure profit because he's come from our academy. Garnacho, on the same level as Rashford, and I never thought I'd say that from the start of the season, or January when Rashford fell out with Amorim and he went, because I can't believe how this is kind of spun out from the end of the season with Garnacho, from the Europa League final until now. But the breakdown in the relationship with Ruben Amorim, it cannot be repaired. He has devalued himself as well as Amorim devaluing him in terms of his transfer fee over the last couple of months drastically, and it's only getting worse. Europa League final interview, Ruben Amorim's public comments about Garnacho, it's just his value is plummeted. It should be a masterclass in how to get your most valuable asset and decrease their value as much as possible. It's incredibly frustrating because that's where we were banking on a lot of the money coming from this summer. Hopefully we can still get some money, but there is clubs interested. Napoli are right there, and Aston Villa are looking as well. Chelsea were, but I think they're going for Gittins. But there will be clubs willing to bring Garnacho in, but it's going to be nowhere near the price we thought we were going to get. And then last, I had Antony. And the reason I had Antony last, which is incredible really, because if you look at all four of these players solely based on ability and talent, Antony wouldn't be last, would he? But this is where an attitude and a personality of a player matters so much. Sancho, Rashford and Garnacho have all, in my opinion, disrespected the fans and disrespected the club. Antony, whereas he's definitely not the best out of them players and maybe doesn't have the potential as a lot of them players, he has not disrespected the club. He's always got his head down and worked hard. He's always trained well. And there's been a few instances where people have thought, why is he doing that? Coventry, remember when he cupped his ear, etc. But he's never disrespected the fan base. He's always worked hard. And apparently, Ruben Amorim's never had an issue with him, apart from the fact he didn't really fancy him. He can play as a wing-back and as a 10. He would never be starting, but as a squad player, he trains well. He's willing to take a wage cut to go and play football, not something that Sancho or Rashford has shown any sign of doing. And when he actually had his opportunity to go out and prove himself at a different club, Real Betis, he went and absolutely smashed it. So don't get me wrong, I'm not putting Antony on a massive pedestal saying we should keep him. He also needs to be moved on. But he'd be on the last of my list to kind of try and address. If we got to the summer, right, and we're running out of time and we can only do so many deals, my priority would be getting rid of the other three. If Antony ended up staying another year, I don't think it would impact us negatively. Whereas I think the other three would impact us negatively. I think Antony could be used in a role and I think he would get his head down and work hard. And that's the baseline of what you want from a Manchester United, any player really, but especially from a Manchester United player. So it's telling, isn't it? And it's a big eye-opener, I think, to everyone at Manchester United and the people behind the scenes as well. I think if I'm Ineos, if I'm Sir Jim Ratcliffe, if I'm the team, the board, you know how we're told that they have a very good relationship all throughout the football club, from the top to the bottom to Ruben Amorim. I would be having a meeting and I would be discussing, and I would even maybe trying to give someone this role or bring someone in to do it. Why at this football club have we had so many instances within the last years where players are consistently allowed to disrespect this football club? Good players as well. Because Rashford, very talented. Garnacho, very talented. Sancho, some people might disagree, but I do think he's very talented. Why all three of them have they been allowed to disrespect the football club? Why has that happened? And where has it gone wrong? Where could we have done better as a club on their behalf? How could we have helped them? Or were they just not the right characters to bring in? And should we have identified it earlier? Because at one point, all three of them players showed promise. And you've got to look at the club as well, because it's a recurring theme with this football club. So it's frustrating, but I wanted to bring that in because the way I look at it is all of them need to go, but how are we going to get rid of them for good money to bring players in? Because I'm just looking at Ruben Amorim's incomings and the harmony of his squad going into next season as well. Jacob Fatu says, do you think we changed enough from last season? Do you think we changed it? So far, no. All we've done is added Cunha. And we've not sold anyone apart from Lindelof and Eriksen going on a free. So, no, we've not changed enough from last season. And another thing I wanted to bring in quickly as well, before I wrap up with the Rasmus Højlund news, is that are the players actually as good as what we've made them out to be? Do you remember when everyone was saying, give Alejandro Garnacho the number 7 shirt? Give him the Ronaldo's chance so early. You know, Marcus Rashford, he's on the wage of what a Mo Salah or a Kevin De Bruyne or an Erling Haaland would be on. He's on a superstar wage, but has he ever consistently showed superstar output consistently to warrant that wage? Jadon Sancho came in on 350 grand a week. How old? 21, 22 years old? I mean, I think Manchester United give players way too much too soon, which also, you know, maybe makes the players think that they are better than what they are. And other clubs, when they've got an opportunity to attack the market and come for our players, you sit here and wonder why they're not coming in for our players. Are they actually as good as what this club has marketed them to be? Because there's footballing experts at all of these clubs, yet we struggle to get a sniff. Is it the club's fault for not being able to sell? Or is it the fact that we make out that these players are some of the best players in the world, when in reality, 8th last year, 15th this year, other clubs can see that. And if you had players that were of the calibre of what we make them out to be and the wages that they're on, surely more clubs would be coming in for them. But the last little bit of news that I wanted to bring in, I mean, this was just a little bit from the Luckhurst article earlier on today. Dozens of scouts have departed Manchester United over the past year, with Christopher Vivell slimming the department down to just 10 first-team scouts. United are now counting on Vivell to take full control of the streamlined network after years of underwhelming transfer business. Well, I'm going to be honest. Okay, you know, if it needed streamlining, I'll take that. And I really do like what Christopher Vivell has done so far at Manchester United. He has really impressed me with the mark he's made at the football club so far. I'm quite excited for what he's going to do in the future with the club. His track record's great. So if he thinks that's needed and is warranted, then fair play. But over the years, I don't think scouting has been our issue. It's been signing off on what the scouts have put forward. We tried to get Camavinga. Nobody signed off on it before Real Madrid went for him. We tried to get Caicedo before he even went to Brighton. Was never signed off on. Erling Haaland wasn't signed off on. Duran from Chicago Fire, I think it was, we tried to go and get, wasn't signed off on. And we have scouted some really good players in the past, but we've not been allowed to go and get them players. We haven't signed off on them players. So the scouts, in my opinion, have done a pretty decent job. It's the people above that were signing off on whether to spend that money on the players that they'd scouted that need to be looked at. So I don't know the details of it, but to me, we've always scouted pretty well. And I think that's something that's a lot of the time not really picked up on the United fan base. So many people say, oh, our scouts, what are they doing? You know, what are our scouts doing? Scouting some really good players. They just can't get it signed off from the powers above. But the Rasmus Højlund stuff, I will finish on that because this is a way that we could bring money into this football club. And we need to do that as the whole point of the show that we've been talking about. So this is from Fabrizio Romano, so you know it's a good source. And do you know what it is with the Rasmus Højlund stuff? I feel like it's the same news each and every week. And it's just the same thing being put back out and back out and back out. And are we actually going to move on this? Is anything going to happen? So the news is Inter Milan are still in negotiations with Rasmus Højlund and Manchester United. Inter have not made an official offer as United's financial demands are too high. So there's a few options here. First option is Inter Milan do a loan with an obligation to buy, whichever fee Manchester United need next year to balance the books with Rasmus Højlund, I assume would be the obligation. Gets Rasmus Højlund's wage off the books. That isn't even that big anyway, but it gives you a space in your squad to bring in a striker. It gives you guaranteed money at the end of the loan. And also, Rasmus Højlund, if he does well in Italy, he's very good for Manchester United. Second option is they pay the £38 million that we need this year to balance the books. I don't think Inter are going to do that, but Inter will have a little bit of money to spend. They got to the Champions League final. They did very well in Serie A. They've got a bit of money there. So get out your wallet and put some money on the table. We gave you 40 million for Onana. Can you not pay us back a little bit? I mean, where's the Onana money gone? I mean, we give you 40 million for Andre Onana, and you can't cough up for Rasmus Højlund, who has proven to do pretty well in Italy before. And you obviously really want him. This news have been circulating for about a month now. So that's the second option. The third option is he stays at Manchester United and, you don't pursue the deal. But they're the three options that can be taken. So I don't know how long this is going to be. Obviously, Rasmus Højlund's going to have a say in it. The last I heard, he wanted to stay and fight for his place at United. But if Ruben Amorim has that conversation with him, when we had the interview with Ben Jacobs last week, he spoke about how Ruben Amorim sees more potential and a bigger future in Joshua Zirkzee, the striker they're looking to bring in, has a similar profile to Rasmus Højlund, but he's better. Therefore, where would Rasmus Højlund's place be in the squad? If he has that conversation with him, I'm sure Rasmus Højlund would be open to going to Inter, a Champions League club, prestigious Italian club, a league that he's done well in before, a very, well-respected club. I'm sure he'd go. So that needs to be sorted out, really, because it's the same news that happens every single week with this. And Manchester United, are you going to push ahead with a loan, with an obligation to buy? Are Inter going to cough up, or are we going to move on from this and look at other suitors and plan ahead with Rasmus Højlund? Because this is one that I feel like could circle as well until the later stages of the transfer window, and they might try the luck with a cheeky bid that is undervaluing what we want for Rasmus Højlund. So United struggle. They really do struggle in terms of moving players on and negotiations. Sean says, next signing will be Mbeumo, then the next will be on the 29th of August. Honestly, at this rate, I feel like Mbeumo is going to be in August. It's been going on for that long. Joseph Robinson says, clubs won't buy players of bad character no matter how talented, only Manchester United do. And that's something that, I was talking about earlier. Other managers, despite, you might tell yourself differently because you want to have hope and you want to be glass half full in us getting money into this football club. But do you not think Hansi Flick, Unai Emery, Enzo Maresca, Thomas Frank, managers of clubs that are looking at these players are going to think, hang on a second. He spoke out when he was dropped against the manager. He's going wearing the player that the manager's fallen out with rival shirt on his Instagram because he's not happy with the manager. What happens if I have to drop him because he's not performing? What happens if, I'm playing a cup final, but he doesn't really fit into the way I want to tactically set up in that cup final? Is he going to speak out against me? Is it going to disrupt the squad? Managers will think about this. Behaviour is massive. Let's put it this way. If Garnacho and Rashford and Sancho were players of another club and Manchester United were linked to them and we were looking at them, would you want us to sign them players? Would you want us to? Would you have queries about their attitude? Would you have queries about their mentality? You would. And therefore, other clubs are going to have the exact same thing, which is another factor that is going to knock off money of what we can get for these players. So it's tough. It really is going to be tough for Manchester United, but this is where I've said it before and I'll say it again. This summer, I'll stand up and I'll applaud. If we end up with Cunha, Mbeumo and Gyökeres, that will be absolutely brilliant business. However, if we end up with Sancho, Rashford, Garnacho still lingering around in August, again, you look at the team and say, we really need to up our game in moving players out of this football club. How do we do it? Do we bring someone in? Do we bring an expert in? Do we, add someone to this transfer team to up our output in terms of moving players on? Do we go and look at how Liverpool, City, Chelsea managed to do this every single time? I mean, City have sold academy players for upwards of 15, 18 million. Honestly, do you remember when they sold a keeper to Southampton for upwards of 12 million who had never played a game for them? I think it was, the whole total package was around 18 million. So United need to up the game, and that is where Ineos will be judged this summer for me as well. Ian Tracy says, I wouldn't be looking to sell Højlund. If he goes, we need to get 2 strikers, and we're struggling to get one at the moment. I would keep him as a backup. I don't really agree, to be honest. We've got 1 game a week in the Premier League. We're not playing Europe. We've got Xerxes, who can play there. Cunha can play there. And Mbeumo can play there. I know none of them are like out-and-out number 9s, but I think Xerxes would actually do really well with Mbeumo and Cunha in behind him. I think you're going to see the best out of Joshua Xerxes next year, if all is done right within the transfer window. And you have Cheeto, who looks really promising coming through, and then you're going to have another striker as well. I don't think you need more than 3 options, and then plus Mbeumo and Cunha, who can fill in there, going into a season where you don't have Europe. You know, Amorim's looking to slim his squad a little bit in that aspect. Class of 99 says, how much are the managers accountable for man management? Of course the managers are accountable, but that is somewhere that Ruben Amorim, on his resume, in his CV, in the past, has been strong. Man management. Look at how loved he was walking out of Sporting. Look at how gutted the players were when Amorim left. Look at the performance they put in for his last game. You know, the way he was, thrown up in the air. He can create a very good dressing room at Manchester United, but he needs to be given time, and he needs to be given the freedom to do so by the powers above. And I do feel like he's being given that, but he needs a helping hand in getting the players that are toxic and not on board out of the door. A lot of people are asking me my thoughts on Garnacho. Did brilliantly for Dortmund when he went there. Manchester United didn't strike on a deal and were linked to him when... That's another example as well, and I will wrap up because I need to wrap up and I'm kind of going on a little bit here. Me going on never happens. I never go on. I always keep it very concise, short and sweet. But sometimes United fans turn the nose up a little bit, and I remember when Garnacho was put on the table for around 16 million before he went to Dortmund, and a lot of fans turned the nose up at it, and I think me, myself included, actually thinking we could do better, we need better. He would have made a difference at United, and we've got to remember where we are. You know, you don't just take a leap from 15th to 1st, you've got to take them steps to get there, and he would have been one of them steps to help us progress a little further up the table, but we didn't do it, and I think it's a lesson for the future as well. Zlazy says the owners need to buy a couple of daughter clubs which can buy our players like City and Chelsea do. Simply Red says United are a different kettle of fish for Sporting. Yeah, they are, but that's another quote you'd bring in. Is it the impossible job? Nobody's managed to do it yet since Sir Alex, but Ruben Amorim's CV in turning a football club around that are in a slightly similar situation is very, very good. We have chosen to give him the chance and the opportunity. You can only work with what's in front of you. He did it at Sporting, he's now at United. Let's see what you can do, and let's back him and get behind him in doing so. He spotted the bad eggs first. A lot of people were choosing Garnacho over Amorim when he first dropped him out the squad. And now I've seen a lot of people say, you know what, Goldbridge included. I don't think he ever really went against Amorim, but he was team Garnacho. He's loved Garnacho for a very long time. And he's recently, in the last few days, gone, you know what, I was wrong. Like, he was right to weed Garnacho out. So he saw something. Remember, we're not on the training ground every day. We're not seeing things behind the scenes. So you've got to trust the manager in that aspect. And I do trust Amorim now in his judgment of players' characters. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, smash a like on the video. Get your comments in down below. Are you worried about us in the transfer window? Are you worried about us being able to move on these players? And how is that going to affect our incomings? I genuinely think Cunha and Mbeumo, a striker, and that could be our lot, to be honest with you. I think that'll be our transfer window. Would you be happy with that? But would you be happy with it if it meant that some of the players that we're trying to move on are lingering still at our football club going into the season? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you everyone for watching. Remember to have a beautiful week. Have a lovely Monday. I know there is never a dull day at Manchester United. I know these things can really affect some people, but get in the comments, get talking in the chat. Make sure you smash a like on the video, and stay tuned on all of our socials as well. The United Stand, we're always putting out tweets on X. Go and have your thoughts on there, get your voices heard. Instagram, TikTok, The United Stand Official, we're there. Facebook, The United Stand Official, we're there with all the latest updates and news where you can have your say. We're all about the community. And if that's not enough for you, Premier League football, what are our rivals doing? What are Arsenal doing? What are City doing? What are Brighton doing? Get on That's Football, because there is daily updates on there of everything else going on within the Premier League too, and some watch-alongs from the Club World Cup. So thank you for watching, everyone. Have a lovely week. I will see you on the next one.